Okay, so we're going to talk about inspections today. And I will tell you up front that my opinion on whether you should attend an inspection varies or does not necessarily fall in line with everybody in the office. So you will need to make a decision as to whether you want to attend your inspections or whether you don't want to attend your inspections. The reason that I always attended all my inspections was because you learn a lot. You also get inside information as to what is going on in the house. A inspection report may note something in the inspection report that is required to be noted, but if you are there and the inspector says, you know, I have to put on there that the age of the HVAC is beyond its life, but it's actually working very well. You get to get that information. Okay, so.
Have you ever been in a situation where you might decide, I don't want to know if there's something wrong, because then I'll have to disclose it if I do know?
You always have to disclose it if you find something out.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, and it doesn't matter if you're there or you're not there. He's going to write up the report and you need to read the report. And then if you find out something that is in the report, then you as a realtor are responsible to disclose anything material about the property. Okay. And you will have the seller go in and change whatever is on the seller's disclosure and initial those changes. You don't have to do a brand new seller's disclosure if something pops. Okay. So I will tell you that when you get ready, now keep in mind, in the contract reads 10 days. Then you have 10 days to complete inspections. I always tell you guys to change it to 14. Those 10 days are calendar days. They are not business days. Okay, so if you write a contract and it gets accepted at 10 o'clock on a Friday night, Saturday is day one, and you are not able to even schedule the inspection until day 3. And let's say the inspector is a couple of days out, and you can't get it inspected until Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, day 6. And it takes him 2 days to get it back to you. 7 to 8, you are in crunch time. Okay, so I always tell you guys to change it to 14 days, just because there are weekends
Can
that
you put
fall.
it past that if you need to?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I've done it way past that before, okay? I depending on the property, depending on the house, I think that at one point I was doing a contract that was going to be, it was their other house was on the market. It wasn't under contract yet. We had a lengthened closing date. And I think I put in there 30 days for inspection period. Okay. When you do get a contract signed, your days start. Okay, so I said contract signed at 10 o'clock on a Friday night, day 1 is Saturday. Okay. And it's Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Okay, so that would be 10 days. You want to get those scheduled as quickly as possible. Unless you get the form that allows you to actually schedule the inspection. I always have my buyer schedule the inspection. 95% of the time, especially down here, they're gonna have no idea who or what the inspectors are. You do want to give them 3 names for inspectors. We have different inspector cards and stuff out here. You want to give them 3 names as you start doing contracts and stuff like that. You will get a feel for who's the good guy, who's the bad guy, who you know, that kind of stuff. I always put the one that I wanted them to call at the top of the list because they usually start at the top of the list and they go down unless they're, you know, like an attorney or something like that. And then they start at the bottom of the list and they go up. Don't ask me what makes them do that. But I always put who I wanted them to call at the top of the list. And then I went down the list. So you will have them schedule it quickly so that you can get in there, figure out what's going on. I am one to want to know everything and anything before I actually file my inspection notice. Okay. Now, the contract does read that you can have additional time for a specialist to come out. So if you have an inspector come out and he goes, oh, this roof is a problem. One of the first things you want to do if you are on the listing side is if they say there's a roof problem, the first thing you want to do is call the insurance adjuster to see if there is any kind of hail damage or whatever kind of damage. It's a lot easier to replace the roof when the seller only has to pay $1,000 deductible than having to pay for the whole thing. Okay. So just a note on roofs, that is one of the things that I usually always have my sellers do. And if you're on the buy side, you want to call the listing agent and say, hey, it looks like there might be a roof problem going on. Can you have them call their insurance company? If they're going back to specialists, so let's say you go through it, they say there's a roof problem, or they say there's an HVAC problem, or there may be a foundation issue going on with the property. Then you want to go in and if you don't have time to do it during your inspection period, you do want to ask for the additional time to have the specialist come in. Speaking of that foundation issues, I do not recommend that you call a foundation company and ask them to give you a quote. Okay, and I'll tell you why. Foundation companies are in the business to do foundation repairs and make money on those foundation repairs. I had a situation up in, and some of you guys may have heard this story. I had a situation up in Olathe, was going to list a property. There were still foundation problems going on. The people spent, I think it was $48,000 to have their foundation worked on. Had a foundation company come out, tell them, oh my God, the sky is falling, all these things are wrong. Did all this work, and it did not correct the foundation problems. We, as the listing agent, I was partnered with somebody. We had them actually call a structural engineer. Okay, a structural engineer will run you about $400. And we had the structural engineer come out and take a look at the foundation. And lo and behold, the $48,000 worth of work that they had done was not needed. And it was something completely different that needed to be corrected. They took the structural engineer report, went back to the foundation company that did the $48,000 worth of work. And the foundation company had to give them their money back. And then we corrected the foundation accordingly. Okay. So if you're on the listing side and you know that there's UC, you go downstairs and you go, one of the
Why did they have
walls
to
is-
give the money back? Because I wasn't expecting them to have to do that.
Why
did they have to give it back? Was it based off of false?
Because they didn't fix it the way that,
Oh, because they didn't.
It wasn't, everything that showed up in the report was not,
Okay.
what they did was not needed
Yeah.
to fix it. So we got their money back for that.
That's good.
And then we went and hired a different foundation company to actually repair the foundation the way that the structural engineer said to,
For much less.
for much less, yes. Yeah, they have piers all the way around and they had gone in and supposedly said that they put the bolts in. And I'm not a foundation person, so don't, quote me on any of this.
Is that how they did it too? That's
Put the bolts in, yeah. Yeah, don't they do that?
a
They
good
put the
record.
bolts in, they dig it all up around it, put the bolts in. And then they do something to pull it back and anchor it or something like that, and that's not, I mean, it was, yeah, so anyway. And do remember, I always like to tell you guys. You are not a roofer, you are not an HVAC person, you are not an electrician, you are not a plumber, you're not a structural engineer. It's, there are times that I go, ooh, I don't like the way that roof looks, but we're gonna need to have that looked at by somebody that does, okay? So a structural engineer will come in and they will evaluate the structure, the foundation. They will determine what needs to be done to correct the foundation. Then you go to a foundation company and you say, here's what I need you to do, okay? So that is why I always recommend if an inspector says, I'm not sure about this foundation, then I call a structural engineer. I've also been known to call structural engineers when I do a listing. Okay, so sometimes you can call the structural engineer, you can get a write-up of the structural engineer, then you can go get a quote from a foundation company, and upon a full offer, full price offer, we will make these repairs. And I would put the report and the quote in the kitchen for all potential buyers to see. Okay, so if you walk down, and we don't, down here, do we have a lot of, we have more slabs. Up there in Kansas City, everybody had a dugout basement, everybody, not everybody down here does. So we had a lot of structural things that went on up there. But there would be times that you would walk in and, even as a real estate agent and the wall's doing this, you kind of know that there's a problem. And the reason that I know those things is because I used to go to inspections, every inspection that we had, or that I had. And you learn things, okay? All the good stuff is usually downstairs or in the attic. So, normally when an inspector comes in, they're gonna start, mine always started on the outside. I had them trained very well. They would usually show up and I knew I had 15 to 20 minutes after they showed up, before I actually had to be there. Because they would go around the outside of the house, they would do the roof, they would do all the outside stuff, and then we would go in. I normally requested that my buyers be there during an inspection. Because that way they can actually learn about the house and know what's going on with it, ask questions of the inspector as they're there, and it's not just a report. Okay, so that is the reason that I showed up to my inspections, and also had my buyer show up to the inspection. If my buyer couldn't be there for the whole inspection, which usually takes about 2 hours. And that's a whole house, mechanical, electrical, structural, and also termite. Okay,
Can I ask a question unrelated?
absolutely.
I need to show,
Unrelated?
unrelated, I need to show a house tomorrow. And I want to ask the agent if they're paying, if the seller is. I need to know what to ask. Are you offering,
Is your seller offering buyer compensation?
Okay. Thank you.
So on
And
inspection,
if they say yes, say how much.
yeah, can afford it.
I'm gonna ask both in the same sentence.
Okay.
So you said you would recommend your buyers to be there. So the seller knows that it's scheduled because you need to tell
Yeah,
the agent.
yeah, I call the listing agent.
But the seller wouldn't normally be present.
I do not recommend that my seller be there,
Right.
period. The seller can ruin the deal,
Yeah,
okay?
they're gonna argue everything that's.
Yes, and they will argue with the inspector.
Yeah,
So I do not recommend that the seller be there. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't be there. You can't say, no, you can't be in your house. I have had instances where the listing agent showed up. Okay, because she wanted to hear what was going on in the inspection report.
So we had this talk about, that Wednesday was talking about love letters yesterday, and I was thinking about that. I was thinking, well, if the homeowner is at the open house and they meet with some of the interested buyers, they could have that kind of thing where, oh, I like this person, you know, who I met at the open house, you know, and they say, I like. What
Yeah, the seller should not be in an open house.
Yeah.
So we do not want the sellers and the buyers
For me.
to be together.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I mean, yeah.
You know, sellers will, you know, when we bought
What
our,
happens if you do have a seller that says, I want to show up, this can have your open house, and yeah, I mean, you're gonna say no, or I recommend it.
no, I would prefer you not be here. Is what I tell them.
Yeah.
I prefer, you don't need to be here. You need to take the dogs and the cats, you all need to go.
Yep.
And I will talk to everybody during the open house, and I can tell you that, 95% of the time, the sellers know that they don't need to be there for an open house, so they should not be there. We don't like them there during inspections. The actual only time that I ever had a buyer and a seller come together was after inspections and after we renegotiated inspections, which, by the way, renegotiating inspections is harder than negotiating the actual contract. Okay. The emotions start going away. You know, it's been a week or whatever. I've had time to sleep on it. You know, so, once the inspection has been completed, we've resolved all issues on, you know, who's paying, who's fixing, what we're fixing, all that stuff. If there's personal property involved, then I let the buyer and the seller get together and determine what we're buying in the property, and that's their deal. I do not like to get involved in personal property.
so it's radon or like mold testing, is that a common part of an inspection or no?
Mold, not usually. Mold is usually it's a specialist.
So if they find evidence, then they're gonna say there is, and then if you wanna have it checked, you can.
Then you can
Radon's a
call
different
a
deal
mold
altogether.
specialist. And a buyer pays for all inspections, except for in Stone County for the septic tank.
Right.
Okay, so in Stone County, a septic tank transfer is required. Bria, I don't know about your area on whether septic tanks are required to have a transfer or inspected. Do you
I
know?
think only if the appraiser shows any signs that something's needed.
Okay,
On radar,
And-
we asked for it. The last two houses we bought. And they found it at the last house we owned. We had to pay for radon remediation, which was pretty simple. It was only like $600.
Yeah, they should have a ventilation system.
You know, they drill it under the.
Let's put a fan in it.
concrete, it sucks it.
pulls the air out. Yeah, right on. So the buyer is responsible for all inspections. Okay. You usually want to start with a whole house inspection. The whole house inspection is going to include, you know, everything in the property, mechanical, God, I used to be able to rattle these right off. mechanical whole house or termite. And then they'll look for any kind of environmental, structural type of things. They're gonna come in, they're gonna go through the house, usually takes about 2 hours. I also like to be there just to make sure that they're checking the things that they're supposed to be checking. Okay, so when Steve and I bought the house that we're in right now, we had an inspector come in, supposed to be a very well-known inspector. And there were certain things that he did not check in the house. One, the attic fan. Two, was the stove working? Some basic things that you would check when you went into a house. So I had to, go behind him and go, are you gonna do that? And lo and behold, the attic fan did not work. So I want to be there to make sure that they test the house properly and go through the house. Normally they start on the outside of the structure, and then they go in the structure. You do want to make sure that they run the dishwasher. If there's a jetted tub, they need to fill up the tub. And they should put water in the tubs, to make sure there are no cracks or anything like that. If it's a whirlpool tub, are the jets working? Is it doing what it's supposed to? No leaks, all that good stuff. So it is a real whole house inspection. Check all the GFCIs, check all the electrical outlets to make sure that they work. And they'll basically go room by room, okay? And check things in the rooms. They will check for termites. Like I said, all the good stuff is usually in the basement or in the attic. So that's where your HVAC system, your hot water tank. Down here, you're gonna have a lot of water purification systems that go on. The water, if you are having the water tested, you will need to get one of the little vials from the county, stick it under the faucet, take it to the county. That does take a few days to get those results back, so you don't want to waste a lot of time. Questions?
So if a buyer, says they're fine, they want to buy it as is, no inspection required. But then I guess the lender finance company will decide they want an inspection. Is that?
Well, I will say that if you're going VA, FHA, or USDA, the appraiser will do their own inspection. Okay, so they have to determine that the house is livable. The inspector is not going to call out a railing. They may, they will call out a cracked window, and they may call out peeling paint or wood rot. But the appraiser will come in and go, in order to get this loan, you have to make these repairs. Okay, so you can do an inspection, and then if it's one of those 3 types of loans, it's very possible that the appraiser is going to go back and say, these have to be fixed.
So I guess the way you're kind of saying that, like the inspectors that work for those government organizations are inspecting for their own organization, but not necessarily for the benefit of a buyer. So like the buyer, would you say that buyers should still have their own inspector on top of those other inspector, like appraiser inspectors?
Yeah, I always have my buyers have their own inspection.
Yeah, separate from the government.
Right.
Okay.
Separate from the mortgage.
Right.
Appraiser requirements. Okay. And those 3 loans, it basically overrides anything. Now, I will tell you that I never had an appraisal ordered until after the inspection. So if your lender goes, oh, I'm gonna order the appraisal, before you do the inspections, whoa, let's slow down, because what happens is the buyer has to pay for that appraisal. And if you don't make it through inspections, then they paid $450 for an appraisal for nothing. Okay, and they usually charge their credit card. Is what they usually do. The mortgage company will charge the buyer's credit card. So I always told the appraisers to hold off until, or told the mortgage company to hold off on the appraisal until after the inspection was done. Okay. Now, if I have a buyer that says that they do not want to get a inspection, one, I'm going to highly recommend that everyone get an inspection of a property. You need to know what you're buying. If they still refuse, there is a FHA form that is called For Your Protection. Get an inspection, that is the name of the form, and I would have them sign it. You want to see why it yourself,
So
okay?
that's, just to prove that you asked, that you recommended to them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to CYA that you recommended to them to get a inspection. And the reason that I always did that is because in the back of my brain, I am always going, what if they become disgruntled after they move in the house and they find something and they decide to sue? And we get up in a court of law and we say, and I say, I told him to get an inspection. Well, no, she didn't. She didn't tell me that. Okay. If I have that piece of paper and they've signed it, I told you to get an inspection.
Which piece of paper? I missed that part, I guess.
The For Your Protection, get an
Oh.
inspection form.
Yeah, yeah.
FHA.
Yeah, it's an FHA form. And you don't have to, it doesn't say required for FHA or anything. I just made them sign it. Before that form came out, I actually typed up a little blurb on a piece of paper and I had them sign it. And I always recommend that somebody get an inspection. Unless they're gonna go in and basically rip that house apart and take everything out and go down to the studs and replace the electrical, the plumbing, you know, all of that. I do recommend that you get an inspection. It's $350. It is well worth the money.
If a buyer, potential buyer says, oh, I don't really want to spend the money on an inspection, is it unheard of to get like a concession from the seller? Is this will help you pay for one? Or is that not normal?
Not normal.
Yeah.
Seller probably not gonna volunteer
I mean-
to do that, right?
I mean, it's a, sometimes you can get inspectors that will bill at closing. So if you, did your offer that said, I'm gonna offer this amount of money and I need the seller to, pay, you know, closing costs and prepaids. Some of the inspectors will bill at closing and collect their money at closing and it'll come out of those proceeds.
Mhm.
But your offer has to be constructed in that way for the seller to pay for it. And you gotta find the inspector that is willing to do that. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna get the inspector's gonna come out, you guys will decide whether you wanna be there or not. You will decide whether the buyer, needs to be there or not. If the buyer couldn't be there, I always have him show up at the end. Because normally the inspector will kind of go through, you know, what he's going to put in the report. Okay. Also know that a inspector can kill a deal. Okay, so, I'll give you an example of that. I had the listing, buyer came in, was going to purchase the house. Buyer got his inspector to come over there. They got into the bathroom of this house and the inspector made a comment to the buyer that all properties needed to have green board underneath the tile around the shower. Awesome. So in the inspection notice that we received, The buyer requested that we take all the tile out and make sure that the sheet rock underneath the tile was green board in all 3 bathrooms. Needless to say, we did not move forward with that deal. Okay, the inspector had no knowledge of whether there was green board underneath that tile. He just made a comment that there needed to be green board under the tile. And we had a buyer who was anal and OCD and an overthinker. And so he decided that he was going to ask us to remove it all. And we were not going to do that. So yes, although I will tell you guys, I do not like deals to fall apart. I don't normally let them fall apart. In that case, I let that deal fall apart. Okay, so do know that there are inspectors out there that will kill a deal. And if you want to know who those inspectors are, you can go on the private Facebook page and say, who do we not use as an inspector, and you will get the list. Also know that inspectors all have their own pet peeves. Okay, they have their own certain things that they look at
That always get pointed
specifically.
out.
Huh?
That always get pointed out.
That always gets pointed out. So know that not every inspector is equal. They don't all inspect at the same level. And you guys will learn that as you go along. I will do a little plug real quick for Alex. Alex does a very thorough job on his inspections. My daughter has used him up in Kansas City for years and years and years. And he has moved down here to Walnut Shade. He does still go back to Kansas City to do her inspections. I was like, oh my God. So, you know, if you're looking for a really good inspector, Alex is a good inspector. And so they're gonna come in the house, they're gonna go through the front, outside. Then they're gonna move into the house. Anything cosmetic is not going to be pointed out. So, you know, if your buyers don't like the color of the walls and they want them painted, that is not something that you can ask for in your inspection notice. Okay. So they're gonna check the gutters, they're gonna check the roofs. The most common things that come up is the grading of the house. So, you know, the dirt's supposed to do this away, and I can tell you that 90% of houses do not do this. So that's gonna be one of the number one things that's gonna be called out. The other thing is the little flue thing on top of the hot water tank. That gets called out all the time. If you're in an older house, GFCIs not being in the kitchens and the bathrooms, that is a huge one, but do know that non-GFCI is grandfathered in. So you may or may not, you know.
That's easy to fix.
It's not an expensive.
That is true, and I'm getting ready to go right there. So you're going to get the inspection report. It usually takes, you know, around 24 hours for you to get a inspection report back from the inspector. I highly recommend you read the inspection report. You do want to know what's going on in there. Your buyers are also going to receive it. I would make a list of the things that I thought were pertinent that needed to be addressed. Okay, anything that's a hazard, anything that's a safety issue or an environmental issue. Those things are a must. We must fix these. Okay. And those were, you know, things that I always wrote down. I went through the inspection report and I would highlight the things that I thought needed to be addressed. I would then sit down with my buyer and we would go through the inspection report and come up with the list. Okay. Um, I'm also going to caution you on, having to educate your buyer that they're not buying a brand new house. And depending on the house, depends on how many things we're actually going to ask to be fixed. If 64 items pop on the inspection report, we don't want to ask for 64 items to be fixed. That's probably unreasonable. And if that's the case, we need to just cancel. Although I am not one to cancel a contract. So you're gonna go through the list, you're gonna make recommendations, you're gonna call the buyer. You're going to ask them what's important to them. Okay, we're going to write those things up and submit the inspection notice. Now, remember that the inspection notice is due no later than the last day of your inspection period. Okay. So if you have a 10-day inspection period and you submit the inspection notice on the 11th day, the seller does have the right to say, yeah, no, I'm not doing any of this. And if you don't submit it in that time frame, you are buying the house with no repairs. Okay, so it is very important that you have that inspection notice no later than the last day of your inspection period. Now, with that being said, if you decide that you are on top of it and everything's good, as soon as you submit a inspection notice to the other side, your inspection period is over. Okay, so if you still have things to do, things to check, anything like that, do not send that inspection notice. So if you get your inspection done on day 3, you go through the list, and you do a inspection notice on day 4, but you still wanted to call the HVAC guy out, or the septic tank guy out, or the well person out, and you didn't put anything in that inspection notice about those items, you're not asking for anything. You're just getting it inspected for informational purposes only, and you cannot cancel because of one of those items. So once that inspection notice is sent, it needs to have everything you want on there. Okay? And I reiterate and iterate those things, because being on this side and having all of you guys call me over the years, there have been many times that I have received phone calls from agents saying, well, we sent the inspection notice on day 4, but we still wanted to go look at this, and we had it looked at and there's a problem, and now my buyers want to cancel, or my buyers want to ask for something to be fixed. You're done. You cannot do that. So it is write it up, ask for it in the beginning, because there is no going back. Okay.
You can't even ask, to say, hey, were they willing to fix this part too? It's not legally binding, I know that, but.
Well, sure, you can ask.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure there was not some legal loophole that I didn't know about.
So in other words, just to review, you got 10 calendar days, not business days, to have your inspection period, and but if you submit your inspection report, that ends that early. You can't do something after. Even if you submit that before the 10 days are up, like you submit it after 3 days, they might think, oh, I have another 7 weeks to do more to spit.
Nope.
You're like, do another report. No, but that's it.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
Once you ask, and it's in written form. Now, you might want to go back and say, hey, I know we didn't ask for this, but this came out, and would your seller be willing?
So it's kind of like a counter offer, like that's your counter offer.
That's real.
They don't have to.
It's just a request at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't have to, and they don't have to agree to it, and they don't have to, and if you cancel based on something you didn't ask for in the beginning, the seller can sue you for non-performance.
Yeah.
So what if, so HVAC's check is good. So you submit your thing, everything's great. Before closing, HVAC goes down.
Mhm.
So now,
It's on the seller.
yeah, it's still their property, so it would be theirs.
Yeah, they would have to repair it.
Okay.
The seller does, right? Yeah. Because it's before possession.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, with that being said, I'll make a little plug for home warranties.
Okay, I wanted to ask you, so my warranty for my HVAC does not transfer. Is that pretty common around here? It seems like if I sold my house, I wouldn't be able to transfer that warranty that I have. It's a 10-year warranty. I wouldn't be able to transfer that to the new owner.
That's the one, it all varies
So it just depends on the
depending
company
on
you're
the
with.
warranty.
Yeah,
Oh, he's talking about the
HVAC.
device warranty, not the actual home.
yeah, just the
that's-
device, just the air conditioning
Right.
and the
Right.
heating.
Yeah, and that depends. When you buy it, they tell you whether it's transferable or not,
Yes.
and a lot of them are not. They
Yeah.
just want to deal with the original guy so they can make money off the next guy. But I will say that you as a seller, especially if you're gonna sell your own home. I do highly recommend that if especially if you're selling your own home, you want to provide a home warranty. If you are on the buy side and you have a buyer, you want to ask for a home warranty. That home warranty can save a lot of hassle, a lot of phone calls, a lot of, okay? Because if you move in, and I can tell you that, I have this happen all the time. I had a guy move into a house, the HVAC worked awesome. When we did the inspection, we closed 25 days later. He moved in, 3 hours after moving in, the HVAC, the air conditioner went out. It was August, 115 degrees outside, okay? We did have a home warranty. And because we had a home warranty, he was able to get his HVAC replaced. They will fix, repair, or replace, okay? And they will repair until it costs them too much to repair it, and then they'll replace it for a home warranty. In this case, they had to replace it. I believe it was a condenser, I'm not positive. It was one of those big ticket items, on the air conditioner. So they replaced it. When my daughter bought her house, the inspector went in and he kind of indicated that, Monica, I'm not real sure about the electrical in this house. It just kind of seems wonky. Everything's working, it's all kind of passing, but I'm not real sure, but I can't see behind the walls. And sure enough, 6 months after that, Clarissa had a problem with her electrical. Okay. And then she had another problem with her electrical. Needless to say, the home warranty company, had to pay to rewire her entire house. Okay. So Clarissa got her house completely rewired, and I paid $500 for a home warranty. Okay. So I highly recommend that you do ask for a home warranty on properties if you are the buyer's agent. It will save you down the road. I had a guy one time that was using me to buy a house and got a call on a Sunday afternoon that he decided to go ahead and buy a Fisto. Yes, I had him under a buyer's agency agreement. Yes, I could have went after him. I chose not to. What comes around goes around. Do you all believe in that? Yeah. He closed on the property. He did not have an inspection on the property. He did not have a home warranty on the property. It was for sale by owner. The owner of the property told him that the air conditioner worked perfectly, that there were no problems with the air conditioner. Okay. The day he moved into the house, it was discovered that the air conditioner didn't work. And guess who he called? He called me. Wanted to know if there was anything I could do to make the seller fix the air conditioning. And I said, did you have an inspector? Have it inspected? No, because the owner told me everything was perfect in the house, perfect. Did you get a home warranty to go with the property? Well, no, I didn't think I needed one. And that's where you use a realtor. Good luck to you. And I hung up the phone. So, you know, I do recommend that you get a home warranty. I do recommend that you have an inspection done on every property. Regardless of what.
Kind of standard, I mean, there's. Price will depend on the size of the house, the age of the house, or is it all kind of standard?
It's all kind of standard. A whole house home warranty, will run you, it's been a while, between $350 and $500. Somewhere in there. If you have a structural engineer come in, that's gonna run you about $400. A mold guy will run you about $400. If you just do a termite inspection, it's usually around $150. Air Serv will come out and check your HVAC for free. Try to sell you something on the side, but they will come out and check your HVAC for free. Well, we bought the house that we're in. My husband is so cute. He is just your, yes, Steve, I'm talking about you if you see this later. He gets very excited. Okay, you wouldn't know it if you met him. But we were having the house inspected and we had Air Serv come out to check the HVAC system. And of course, the HVAC guy, you know, said, oh, well, you know, if you do this, this, and this today, you know, I'll only charge you this. So Steve comes running downstairs and says, I'm gonna tell the guy to go ahead and do it. And I said, no, you're not. Well, why not? We don't own this house. So, so do you know, you don't want to do anything to the property and you don't want to let your buyers do it. His wife's been in the business for 20 years. He should know better. You don't want to let them do anything to the property until they actually own the house. Okay, so there was something, I was like, what's wrong with you?
Hey, good
No, we're
deals,
not
good
doing
deals.
that.
So a few months ago, I had a guy from Oregon come down from Springfield to do a free termite inspection. He said he found termites on the deck. And he wanted me to sign off right there, like a lot of money. I said, I'll think about it. And then I had my neighbor, who was a few blocks away, who I know is a pest exterminator, come over and look at the deck, and he said he didn't find any evidence of termites on the deck. And so, I don't know, but I need a third opinion, but it's kind of interesting that the first guy found something, the second one did.
Were there little tunnels?
I don't know, I mean, he took a few pictures, on his laptop, but I didn't really go over and look where they actually were. And it might have been just sand from my sandbox that was lying there, I don't know, but I didn't see anything. No.
When they do a termite inspection, they may indicate that they found evidence of termite activity that is no longer active. Meaning, most of the time, that there were termites. The property was treated for termites. But they didn't go in and clean up the tunnels afterwards, they just left them there. So it depends on, is it active or is it not active? Now, speaking of termites, do know that if they do find termites, if they find active termites, they have to treat. The seller has to treat for termites. They don't necessarily have to correct the damage that the termites did, but they have to treat. Even when we get into foreclosure situations, which I do think is coming again.
Yeah.
The banks have to treat for termites. They will say as is all day long, but if there is active termites and they find termites, they have to treat.
Are there any other things they have to take care of? The
Foreclosures?
seller in general.
Well, I mean, just pests, like, we have bed bugs or something like that.
Well, hopefully when they move all the furniture out, the bed bugs go with it.
Well, they can hide behind the baseboards. They live behind the baseboards and then
Okay, now
in
you're
the walls and
freaking me
stuff.
out.
I know this, I've had a long time ago, I had some, so.
Yeah, no, you can ask them to treat for bed bugs. There is no law
But they were-
that states that they have to treat for that. No, they have to treat for termites. That
That's the
is
only
a-
thing.
And the only other thing, because I know two different people that had this happen, bats living up in the attic or something
Oh, yeah,
is very expensive because they're protected.
Mm.
And it's a big deal.
Nobody knows they're not.
Well, nobody knows. If the bats just decide to move.
It's not illegal unless you get caught.
You see now you're.
So did you have to like catch them alive and then release them? Maybe.
You have to have specials come in and have to get them out. It's a
so
big deal.
usually, a lot of times what they'll do is the rodent person, whatever it is, they're just flying rodents.
Yep.
The rodent person will show up at dusk. They will find out where they're coming in and out of. And normally all the bats will,
They leave at night.
they will leave at dusk, and go do their feeding. And you cover up the hole so that they can't get in there. So they can't get back in. Is what they do, so they seal it up. We had bats in our other house, they weren't in my house, they were in a pole. We had a support pole that they put, this thing around, square thing around. And they didn't enclose the top of it, and they were going down in there. So at night, when after, it was kind of, I have become, the redneck lady of Stone County. So at night, because Steve would fall asleep in the chair, at night I would go out there and we had this little thing that I would put on top of it after they left. Yeah, so.
When you want bats around, they're handy. You just don't want them in your
I
stuff.
like that.
Right, yeah. No, I've got them around my house that I have now. I see them,
They're eating your mosquitoes.
yeah, at night, so, I have about 6 or 7 of them floating around, so, yeah, I never had to deal with bats. Okay, so we've done the inspection. We've gotten our report back. We went through the report, we identified the things that we're concerned about. Okay, we're gonna get with our buyer, we're going to go through the inspection report with them. We are going to determine what it is that they want to ask for, what they're worried about, what they're not worried about, okay? A lot of times they're gonna go, yeah, I'm not worried about anything. Sometimes they will say, I want everything fixed. I do ask them, what are the most important things on this list? Okay, because just like when we negotiated the contract, we are going back into negotiations again. So you want to find out what their top things are. What is the most important things that they want fixed? And then the rest of it's all, gravy, okay? We will also determine whether we're going to ask for everything to be fixed or whether we want to ask for some kind of monetary resolution, okay? 90% of the time, you're going to go in and up the closing cost, but do be careful on closing costs. Okay, so if you ask for $4,000 in closing cost on the initial offer, and then we go back and we ask for $10,000 in concession closing costs because of the inspection, you're not going to get to $14,000 in closing costs. It's not going to happen. Okay, so you need to understand how you're going to maneuver that request, because anything that's not used in the closing cost is to the benefit of the seller. Okay, it just goes away. They don't go in and go, oh, we only use 10,000 of it and here's $4,000. It's not how it works. They go up to the point of all the closing costs. So you will want to have a conversation with the lender to say, hey, we're gonna ask for another 10 grand. How do you want me to do this? Okay, and he's gonna go, don't put it all in closing costs. I only need up to 7 grand. Okay, so that would be an additional 3, and what we're gonna do with the other 7. A lot of times you will reduce the price of the property. But the seller cannot give the buyer money. You guys understand that, right? There are no checks. There is no money that transfers between the buyer and the seller. We're either going to reduce the closing costs or increase the closing costs, reduce the price. There are no checks that go between.
What about a floor or window allowance?
Normally that will be put in escrow. And the title company will pay out accordingly once they receive the invoice. So they're,
So I have a seller right now that says they'll do a $5,000 floor window allowance.
you have a what?
I have a seller that said they'll do a $5,000 floor window allowance.
Mhm.
Should they have already paid a check to title?
Well, the buyer's gonna go figure out who they wanna use. And then, I mean, typically those allowances,
And that's just cash to the buyer and then they do whatever they want, whenever they want after closing.
the seller's not gonna give the buyer cash.
Well, not literally cash, but I'm just saying,
Check. I mean, is that come from the closing?
They will need to identify who that $5,000 will be sitting at the title company. And when the buyer uses that for flooring or whatever, they will need to provide an invoice to the title company, and then the title company can issue a check. But there has to be something to back it up. I don't do allowances. Allowances, when you start doing allowances, the buyer's already ticking off money off of there. So they're walking in the house going, oh, so let's do it $250 and they give me a $5,000 allowance, okay. I'm gonna offer them $230 and I want my $5,000 allowance. So I don't usually do allowances. I just replace the carpet or replace the floor. Well, I don't wanna pick it up or the buyer pick it up, do something different. You're probably gonna come out better off just taking care of it before you list it. Rather than trying to do it afterwards.
What if the buyer wants something that's
And
different?
besides, you can't do allowances on FHA, USDA, or VA.
Hmm.
It has to be cash or conventional, and not all conventional ones really don't like you doing allowance either. So I don't do allowances. That's me. What are you doing right there? I put my phone back on so I get credit for my steps.
oh,
Okay, what else we got going on? Any questions
so
on any
if
of
my
this?
sellers are offering that allowance and they haven't given anything in escrow at all, they just wanted it said on MLS. Those people, whether they're using a government loan or not, they could always come back and we could probably say, let's just do instead of the allowance, let's do 5,000 in concessions or something,
Mhm.
They could probably negotiate something like that too.
Let's reduce the price by
Or
5.
use it, exactly.
Yeah.
Alright,
Am I losing you already?
No, I'll be back.
Okay. Once we figure everything out, we're going to send the inspection notice over to the listing agent. And then you're going to go back and forth. Okay, or the seller's either gonna go, yeah, I agree to do everything. Or they're gonna go, no, I don't like this and I'm gonna propose this. Or they're gonna come back and go, I'm not making any repairs. Okay, And so you're gonna kind of go back and forth. And that's when you will want to be able to use the list of what are the most important things to the buyers. So that you can make sure that they stay on track and stay motivated to go ahead and close the deal. I can tell you that, most deals cancel because of inspections. And because they can't come to terms.
And you provide the inspection notice, but not the inspection report, right? Or do you? Doesn't matter.
I do.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because it's probably good for that seller to see this big list of all these things, but we're only asking.
yeah, up in Kansas City, you are required to give them the inspection report if you ask for any inspections. Down here, I'm gonna say that you are required to send it. We don't require you to upload it into your documents. So yes, you do. Which a lot of people, when they do a inspection notice, will say, please repair roof as indicated on, page 62 of the inspection report. Okay. When you do type up the inspection notice, we want to repair/replace. Repair/replace the roof as indicated in the inspection report. Repair/replace the broken sealed window in the family room. Repair/replace the hot water heater. And we want it done by a professional licensed.
Yeah, because I mean, you leave a whole lot, if you just say repair/replace, I can see a seller think, well, all I gotta do is climb up there and put a little pitch on the roof and it's good. I don't have to worry about it anymore.
So we want to repair/replace the roof by a professional roofer. Okay, licensed roofer, a licensed plumber, a licensed electrician. Okay, so you do want to indicate that. Because you may have a guy that decides to go on YouTube.
Yeah.
I'm gonna YouTube it. How do I fix this? I'm gonna save myself all kinds of money. You on the buyer side will want all receipts for all repairs made. Okay, so before closing, before the walkthrough, you will want to touch base with the listing agent and request all receipts for all repairs made. So that when the buyer calls you and they say, they didn't fix this, you're able to tell them who fixed it and the phone number for the vendor to call them. Bria, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good.
Okay, does all this make sense?
Yeah, kinda. I'm putting it together.
Am I gibbering too much?
No, no, not at all.
Okay. And then you will do your final walkthrough to make sure that all inspection items are complete. Sometimes you can call the inspector back out to have him go take a look. Some inspectors charge a trip charge to come back out and check things. And make sure that the repairs were completed. Did I miss anything?
I have a question, Monica.
Yeah.
It's Linda Thomas.
Hi, Linda. I didn't know you were there.
Yep.
Okay. Am I making sense?
Yes, you're doing great. I actually just got my first inspection back, so this is very timely.
Okay.
In the 10 days that we have for inspection, or 15, which actually I wrote 15 in mine.
Good girl.
When I sent, well, I think you helped me do that. You're a good girl. We're good together. When I send that back, if I have something on it that says repair, replace, and I only have 1 day left in that 15-day period, does me sending that to them then satisfy that 15-day period and then we have time to negotiate back and forth? Or do all negotiations need to be finished by that time?
No, you have 15 days to send the inspection notice saying, this is what I want repaired.
Okay.
Then you have 10 days to negotiate those repairs.
Perfect. Okay. And
So you-
that's just to negotiate, but not to get the repairs complete.
No, the repairs have to be complete before closing,
Okay.
unless it's like a roof. And then we do something that agrees that the roof will be replaced after the fact. But you do want to know as a buyer's agent, you know, that has been scheduled or whatever.
Yeah.
I am not one to close on anything until I know the repairs are complete.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. So yeah, once you send the inspection notice, then per the contract, you have 10 days to negotiate those repairs. Usually doesn't take that long. But you do have 10 days to negotiate those repairs. Who else have I got on here? I'm curious. Okay, any other questions?
So just to reiterate, if they do the repair satisfactorily, the seller can't back out of the contract by that point. When was the last time they could have backed out? That said no deal, like before the end. When the counter offer was accepted, then you enter the inspection period and all that stuff goes well, that's, the seller can't back out at that point, right?
If they disagree with the repairs,
If they say, well, those repairs aren't very good, or, well, that's the buyer though, if they don't like the repairs, but
Well,
kind of the seller back.
the buyer can ask for things to be fixed. The buyer can cancel it. If the buyer asks for things to be fixed and the seller says, I ain't fixing nothing. Then yes, the seller can cancel.
Okay.
Okay. If they can't come to terms, then the contract is canceled.
I have a
And you
question,
will do a mutual release.
but it's
And
not,
normally the money will go back to the buyer at that point.
I'm kind of stuck on this allowance thing. I didn't know the government loans on the allowance. So that's good to know. So if they do a negotiation where they'll pay concessions, put your own concessions. Is there anything like? Does that go against the seller as in profit, or they don't pay the taxes on it? Because it's whatever they get net after all that's done, right? Kim, remember the question you had to me earlier? Am I asking the question right?
yeah, I was just asking if, because it'll show, the seller,
The $5,000 is going to come off of the seller's net.
So they don't have to pay taxes
so
on
it's
them,
not-
helping them in concessions.
right, it's not like they make another 5,000, it's just, it comes off.
Okay, I just didn't know if there was any kind
Have they lived in the house more than 6 months?
of. 7 years,
Are they making, how many?
7 years,
Okay. Are they making over $500,000?
no,
Then they don't have to pay taxes. They're gonna capital gains.
I was over 250, although it's 250.
I thought they raised it. Somebody Google it.
Google it, Kim.
I thought they raised it to 500,000.
Is it 2
As
years?
long as they're more than 2 years.
Now. FHA,
It says 15%, but that doesn't.
okay, so they did change it.
15%.
So it has to be 15% higher than what you purchased it for. But you then are able to go in and say that I put a new roof on it, I put a new HVAC in it, I put a new, and all these costs are taking away from you.
Okay.
And that's how they determine whether you're gonna take capital gains or not.
They bought the house at 187, they're selling it for 350.
They don't wanna take that.
And they put the roof.
Yeah, they won't have to pay.
Okay, so is the.
That's not something that I've never seen anybody, that has lived in their house that long have to pay capital gains. Now, I have seen flippers have to pay capital
Right.
gains because they're in, they're out.
Right.
Okay, and, you know, on flip houses, a lender can come in and go, I need to, you know, they put a magnifying glass on everything that goes on once they find out that it's a flip house. So if the flipper hasn't owned the property, I believe for 6 months, some lenders, depending on what type of loan it is, may start questioning and want a list of all the repairs that were done to the flip house by the seller.
That's why they put it at 6 months.
Yes. Yeah, they gotta own it for 6
They
months.
want it to be just over 6 months before you flip. it.
Yes.
What are you saying?
Yes.
What did I miss?
Because on that, when we were talking to the AI about that, he's like, we put it at 6 months.
Yeah.
Because he wants to make sure it's.
You have to own it for 6 months.
Oh,
a
you're
year.
a hard money lender?
Or you start running into questions.
Yeah.
You know, we went through that a lot back in the 2008 to 2011 timeframe, because there were so many foreclosures out there. And there were a lot of flippers, that were going in and purchasing a property. And then they'd be in, they'd be out, you know, in a couple of weeks, and then they put the house on the market. And before the 6 months time frame, I can't tell, I worked with a lot of flippers. And I would get all these phone calls from these lenders about, I need a list of every, itemized list of everything that you did and everything that you spent. Because the lenders didn't want the flippers to make too much money.
Yeah, they want to justify that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And they wanted to make sure that their buyer wasn't
Yeah.
purchasing a property that
That was
was not gonna be worth what it.
Yep.
You know, and at the time, we had a lot of short sales going on at the same time, so there were, you know, you
Pretty big
had.
gaps in the price, yeah.
And
So
then
Kim,
you
are
had
you
the,
saying the hard money lender?
No, your flipper, the flipper is putting it at a 6 month window. So he's
Yes.
borrowing money for 6 months
they have to own it.
so that he owns it for that period, which will help.
So the hard money lender at least gets his interest for the 6
That he
months.
gets 6 months.
And then
the
when you
flipper
sell it
owns
after that, then the banks don't question.
That's correct. Well, they don't question as much. Yeah, makes sense.
So,
But don't you have to own a home for 2 years before you won't get charged capital gains?
Yeah.
Flippers get charged.
yeah,
capital gains.
and if you have any of those government loans, you have to own the property for a certain amount of time. Because they are, usually you get like a reduced interest rate and some other things backing that go along with it. So you have to own the property for a certain amount of time. So you don't, and more of that was, not necessarily an FHA loan, it was, grant money. So the government, when the markets get, and we're like way off topic. Do you guys have any questions on inspections
So
before
I didn't mean.
I go,
That was
before I
that
go
was
way
a
off
squirrel.
topic here?
Very big squirrel.
We're gonna get into lending and stuff like that. So when the markets start really hurting, different organizations, different government agencies, state agencies will come out with grants and basically what I call free money. Okay, and they will allow you to go get what is called down payment assistance. But in the down payment assistance, you have to live in the property for a certain amount of time, or you have to pay back anything that they gave you. Another stipulation that comes up is if you buy a HUD home, which is a foreclosed home, and it's on the HUDstore.com, I believe. You do have to have a login and password to be able to submit anything on the HUDstore.com. But if you buy a HUD home, you are required to live in it for a certain amount of time. You have to owner occupy the home for about 2 years before you can go in and do a rental. Other things that come up on HUD homes, if you do HUD homes, they will have a certain time frame. Usually it's 2 weeks to 4 weeks, depending on the property, that they will only accept owner occupied offers and not allow investors to make offers on those properties. So if you have a flipper and they call you up and go, oh my God, this house is, I want this house. You need to go on to the HUD store and find out, how long the property's been on the market. Is it out of that time frame before they can actually put an offer in on the house? HUD homes, they will have somebody go out and actually go through the house. And you can get a pre-inspection inspection report. So they have their own guys that go out, they check the water pressure and they go through the house. And if you have a login and password, and you do have to put in your license number, what state you're with. I don't believe you have to have a NERC number, but you do have to have a real estate license number to be able to put in there. You can actually go in and look at their inspection report. Most HUD homes will be as is. Okay, so they're not gonna make repairs. The only repair that they have to make is they have to treat for termites. And they will also tell you that the property is as is and we will make no repairs. That does not mean you cannot negotiate, a new price or whatever.
That's a good option, okay, if like first time home buyers and looking for,
Do what?
like first time home buyers, somebody looking for a home, that's a great option to assist.
Yeah, I had a lot of first time home buyers that bought foreclosures on HUD homes.
But somebody, and I don't know, I heard that their HUD is very slow at releasing homes right now. They're just not, they don't, they're.
Yeah, they are. They're sitting on them.
Yeah, they don't want anything in the market for some
But
reason.
by law, they're supposed to let go.
So many a month.
They're not
in there.
doing it. They're not even following their own rule.
Yeah. I mean, it just.
Whatever.
We will get to the point where they will start releasing it. It's kind of sad because of the low inventory. But if they're not hanging on to a lot of them, then they're just, they're holding them. If there's not, they don't have an abundance of them. So foreclosures right now, anybody that you talk to and if they make a comment that they're going into foreclosure or they're having a problem, you need to get their house listed.
Like, is there a way we can look up those facts, like how many houses HUD is holding on to and how many they're releasing and all that?
Yeah, I don't have any idea, other than going into the home store, HUD homes, and
They don't like, it's not public knowledge, like how many are these?
I've never looked for it. Not something that I was,
Okay, so going back to what we said earlier, so government, the recommended order for these would be government appraisal / inspection if it's a government loan. Then your buyer inspection, and then after that, the lender appraisal. It sounds like roughly the order.
well, the appraiser is gonna be with the lender.
Right, so but if you have all right. Okay, because so like, it's like at one point we said government appraisal / inspection should be before the buyer inspection, but now you're saying it should be after.
No, they'll be after,
After.
yeah, because you don't order appraisals until your inspection's done. Okay. And most listing agents do understand, that if they are accepting a FHA, USDA or VA loan, that whatever, repairs are requested, that there could be something else that pops up, based on the FHA, USDA or VA appraisal. Now I will say that, probably, 90% of loans are, a lot of them are FHA loans. Most people go with an FHA loan. Because not everybody has 20% to put down on a property. And some people will do FHA loans just because even if they have 20% to put down, because a lot of times the interest rate is a little bit better than a conventional loan.
I did conventional, mine was conventional below 20%, not an FHA.
It was,
my own house mortgage was a conventional loan, not FHA, but it's less than 20% of the PMI.
Yeah.
So.
yeah, there are 5% down conventional loans and 10% down conventional loans.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different programs out there. But a lot of people, will do an FHA loan, because there's different requirements on an FHA loan.
Or like your income.
Yeah, and it's based off your income and your credit score. And all of those things play a part in what kind of loan you qualify for. I don't know, I think that we had an FHA loan and we had money to pay for the house, so I can't remember exactly why the reason was that we did FHA when we bought this last house, but it was a better program, better interest rate. We did an ARM, and I think the FHA ARM was a better rate than a conventional ARM. So a lot of times that'll play a part. And if you have enough of a down payment, you're not gonna pay PMI anyway. So a lot of people don't like to pay PMI. Okay. I went way off. And
That's what
never
we do
never.
to you.
Huh?
That's what we do to you.
Yeah.
Oh, you missed the most important stuff.
Of course, I'm sure you'll tell me later.
Okay, any other questions?